Cold, wealthy, so didn't want girl child. Until he saw his long-divorced wife with quadruplets. Before she could close it, movement behind her caught his attention. A small figure appeared, peering around Aaliyah's legs with curious eyes. Eyes he knew intimately. Have you ever had one moment completely shatter everything you thought you knew about yourself? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The moment Cole Harrington saw the four identical girls in red coats, all with his dimples, the empire he'd built on cold calculation crumbled beneath a single, devastating question. Had he walked away from his own daughters 8 years ago? Rain pounded the Manhattan streets as Cole stepped out of his black Bentley, Italian leather shoes instantly soaked. He froze mid-step, umbrella forgotten in his hand. Across the busy intersection, through sheets of water, stood Aaliyah Carter, the woman who'd once been Mrs. Harrington. But it wasn't her presence that knocked the air from his lungs. It was the four small figures surrounding her, holding hands in a perfect chain of matching red raincoats. For little girls, identical, with dimples that mirrored his own. Time slowed as one of them laughed, revealing the exact same indentation in her left cheek that appeared in every Harrington family portrait. His father's dimple. His dimple. Sir, his driver called, but Cole couldn't move. 8 years earlier, he'd stood in their Dallas penthouse, coldly informing Aaliyah that he had no interest in raising daughters. A man's legacy is carried through his sons, he'd said, parroting his father's words without questioning them. When she told him she wanted children regardless of gender, he'd ended their marriage with brutal efficiency. The crosswalk signal changed. Aaliyah turned, ushering the girls away. She hadn't seen him. Sir, you're getting drenched, his driver insisted. Cole finally moved, mechanically returning to the car. Take me home, he managed, his voice unrecognizable even to himself. That night, sleep abandoned him. His penthouse windows framed Manhattan's glittering skyline, a view that usually reassured him of his power and position. Tonight it felt hollow. He paced the immaculate floors, calculations running through his mind. Timing, possibilities, probability, quadruplets. The odds were astronomical, but less astronomical than four little girls who weren't having his exact dimple. By morning, his decision was made. Unshowered and unshaven. Conditions unheard of for Cole Harrington. He instructed his driver to take him to Brooklyn. His assistant had located Aaliyah's address with disturbing ease. The modest brownstone stood in stark contrast to the luxury high-rise they'd shared during their marriage. Cole climbed the steps, straightened his tie out of habit, and knocked. The door opened, revealing Aaliyah. More beautiful than he remembered, her dark skin glowing, her eyes widening in shock before hardening to stone. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice cold. "Those girls," he said, skipping any pretense of pleasantries. "How old are they?" "You need to leave," she replied, moving to close the door. He blocked it with his foot. 7? 8? The timing is terrible. Go back to Connecticut, Cole. "Are they mine?" he demanded, hating how desperate he sounded. Aaliyah's face transformed, anger replacing shock. "They know who their father is, and it's not you." She pushed against the door. Before she could close it, movement behind her caught his attention. A small figure appeared, peering around Aaliyah's legs with curious eyes. Eyes he knew intimately, eyes that matched his mother's exactly. The unique shade of amber-flecked brown that had skipped his father entirely. "Who's that, Mommy?" the little girl asked. "Nobody, Zara. Go back inside." But Cole couldn't look away from those eyes. His mother's eyes. Eyes that couldn't be explained away or denied. Have you ever had one moment completely shatter everything you thought you knew about yourself? What would you do if you discovered your past choices might have cost you something irreplaceable? Because in that moment, Cole Harrington, the man who built financial empires without flinching, felt something crack inside his chest. Something he'd long assumed was made of stone. 8 years ago, he demanded divorce papers because she wanted children regardless of gender. Now, he was demanding a DNA test because he couldn't bear the thought that those girls weren't his. "You need to leave." Aaliyah blocked the doorway, her body a fortress between Cole and the curious child behind her. Not until we talk. Cole kept his voice even, controlled, the same tone that commanded boardrooms. It had no effect on Aaliyah. There's nothing to discuss after 8 years of silence. Those girls are my daughters, not yours. Her words cut sharp as glass. A crash from inside the house broke their standoff. Aaliyah turned instinctively toward the noise, giving Cole the opening to step past her into the entryway. Her home pulsed with life, colorful drawings taped to walls, tiny shoes scattered by the door, the scent of pancakes lingering in the air. 4 identical faces peered at him from the living room doorway with varying expressions: curiosity, shyness, suspicion, and open fascination. "You have the same dent in your face as us," one said, pointing to her own dimple. "Zara, Maya, Kirania, go upstairs," Aaliyah ordered, her voice tight. The girls disappeared in a flurry of whispers and giggles, but not before Cole cataloged each face, each expression. He turned to Aaliyah, finding her arms crossed defensively across her chest. "When were you going to tell me?" he asked. "I wasn't." Her honesty stunned him. "You made your choice very clear. That was before you knew they existed?" "That's exactly the point." She moved to the kitchen, forcing him to follow. "You didn't want daughters. You walked away from the possibility of children because they might be girls. Why would I tell you when they actually were?" Cole watched her move around the kitchen, her movements sharp with anger. "I have a right to know my children. You surrendered that right when you said daughters would dilute your precious legacy." She slammed a mug onto the counter. "Now you want a DNA test? Why? So you can reject them to their faces this time." Her words hit like physical blows, but he held firm. "I want the test because I need to prove they're mine." "They're not up for claiming, Cole. They're people. Little girls who've never once asked about their father because they have everything they need." The sound of small feet on stairs interrupted them. The smallest girl, he couldn't yet tell which was which, appeared in the doorway. "Mommy," Kira spilled juice on her new shirt. Aaliyah's expression softened instantly. "I'll be right there, Nia." The girl lingered, studying Cole with uncanny focus. "You have the same smile as me." Before Aaliyah could intervene, Cole knelt to the child's level. "I think I might," he said gently. Aaliyah ushered Nia back upstairs, then turned to Cole with fire in her eyes. "I'll agree to the test on one condition. You stay away until we have results. And when they confirm what we both already know, if they match, we'll talk about supervised visits. Nothing more. Would you let someone who rejected you at your most vulnerable back into your life? At what point does protecting yourself become protecting others from the truth?" Cole nodded once, his jaw tight. "I'll prove they're mine, and when I do, you won't be able to keep me from them." The man who controlled billions couldn't stop thinking about 4 little girls who colored outside the lines. Cole stared at the quarterly reports spread across his desk, numbers blurring before his eyes. 3 days had passed since he'd seen the quadruplets. 3 days of distraction he couldn't afford with markets in flux and investors growing nervous. "Mr. Harrington?" His assistant's voice broke through his thoughts. "Your 10 o'clock is waiting." He nodded, straightening his tie. "Send them in." The meeting proceeded on autopilot, his mouth forming the right words while his mind calculated genetic probabilities. Quadruplets occurred in roughly 1 in 700,000 births. Natural quadruplets, even rarer. Identical quadruplets with his dimple and his mother's eyes? Mathematically impossible unless they shared his DNA. "Sir," his VP of acquisitions was staring at him expectantly. "Proceed with the offer," Cole said, having no idea what he'd just approved. When the room finally emptied, he unlocked his desk drawer. Inside lay a folder with the name of a highly recommended private investigator. One call would give him everything: Aaliyah's movements over 8 years, the girl's birth certificates, medical records. His finger hovered over the call button. Was this who he still was? A man who used power and money to control situations? To control people? Instead, he found himself dialing another number. "Hello," Aaliyah's cautious voice answered. "I'd like to bring them something," he said without preamble. The girls. Silence stretched across the line. "Finally, why?" Because he stopped, realizing he had no strategic answer. Because I want to, more silence. Then, they like art supplies. And books. Nothing electronic. He showed up that evening with 4 identical art kits, each with a different colored case and a stack of picture books. Aaliyah met him on the porch, arms crossed. 10 minutes, she said. They're finishing dinner. Inside, 4 identical faces turned toward him with synchronized curiosity. One jumped up immediately. Are those for us? She bounced with barely contained energy. Zara, manners, Aaliyah reminded her. Cole set the gifts on the table, suddenly unsure. I didn't know what you liked, so. I'm Zara, the bouncy one announced. That's Maya with the glasses. Kira has the band-aid on her elbow, and Nia's the quiet one. She pointed to each sister in turn. Cole cataloged each detail, desperate to distinguish them beyond their identical faces. Thank you, Maya said formally, examining the art kit with careful hands. Kira immediately opened hers, dumping contents across the table. Nia held back, watching Cole with thoughtful eyes. Do you draw? She finally asked, her voice soft. No, he admitted, but my mother did. Our grandmother? Zara asked instantly. The question hit him like a physical blow. My mother, their grandmother, connections he'd never considered. When he left 20 minutes later, Aaliyah had extended his 10 minutes without comment. His phone buzzed with work emergencies. He ignored them all, clutching something Nia had pressed into his palm, a crayon drawing of stick figures, the tallest one with a question mark for a face. Have you ever realized too late what actually matters? When have you discovered that what you thought you wanted wasn't what you needed at all? The clinical paper confirmed what his heart already knew. Those girls carried his blood, but the real question remained. Did he deserve to carry their trust? Cole received the DNA results during his weekly executive meeting. The courier required a signature, the envelope marked confidential in bold red letters. Excusing himself, he retreated to his office, closed the door, and stared at the sealed envelope. His hands trembled, a betrayal of nerves he hadn't experienced since childhood, when his father had made it clear that Harrington men don't show weakness. He steadied himself against his desk, realizing this paper held more than scientific results. It contained the answer to whether he was still the man his father created or someone capable of change. The results were indisputable. 99.9998% probability of paternity for all 4 girls. Genetic proof of what those dimples had already told him. He called Aaliyah immediately. We need to talk. They met at her home after she finished work, the girls upstairs with a babysitter. Aaliyah sat across from him at her kitchen table, the DNA results between them. Why didn't you tell me? His voice emerged softer than intended. You made it clear you didn't want daughters. She met his gaze unflinchingly. Why would I force children on a man who specifically rejected the idea of them? That was before they existed. And you think that makes a difference? Anger flashed in her eyes. You didn't want daughters in theory, so I should have assumed you'd want them in reality? After you walked away from our marriage over the mere possibility? Each word hit like justice he couldn't deny. I was wrong. The admission felt foreign on his tongue. About everything. Aaliyah's expression remained guarded. One supervised visit. We see how it goes. They arranged to meet that weekend at an indoor code playground called the Cove Code Playground. Cole arrived early, dressed in slacks and a button-down, the most casual outfit he owned. He felt wildly out of place among the colorful climbing structures and screaming children. Aaliyah arrived with the girls, each wearing a different colored headband, the only way he could tell them apart at first glance. Girls, Aaliyah said carefully, this is Mr. Harrington. He's going to play with you for a while. Zara, red headband, boundless energy, immediately grabbed his hand. Can you go down the big slide? Mommy says she's too old. I'm probably too old too, he said, but allowed himself to be dragged toward the towering structure. For 2 hours, he chased, climbed, and crawled through tunnels designed for people half his size. He pushed swings, caught children at the bottom of slides, and learned. Maya, blue headband, loved books and could already read. Kira, green headband, was fearless, the first to try any physical challenge. Zara never stopped talking or moving. Nia, purple headband, watched everything before participating, but had the most infectious laugh once comfortable. They were individuals with distinct personalities, despite their identical faces. They were miraculous. They were his. As their time ended, the girls gathered their shoes, chattering about their next visit. Cole felt a tug on his sleeve. Zara looked up at him with serious eyes. "Are you going to be our dad now? Or are you just visiting?" The question hung in the air between them, devastating in its simplicity. If someone kept your children from you, could you forgive them? Or would you understand they were protecting the children from the person you used to be? The CEO, who could silence a room with a glance, found himself speechless when 4 little girls demanded he do all the character voices in their bedtime story. Higher, Cole held Kira's hands as she swung from the monkey bars at the park. 3 supervised visits had graduated to 1 unsupervised afternoon each week. Today, Aaliyah had called with an emergency, a catering client crisis that couldn't wait. "Can you take them for the evening?" she'd asked, voice strained. "My usual sitter has the flu." Now he checked his watch. 6:30. His Italian leather shoes looked absurd beside tiny, glittering sneakers as they entered Aaliyah's apartment building. The girls raced up the stairs ahead of him, a kaleidoscope of movement and laughter. "I'm hungry," Zara announced, dropping her backpack inside the door. Cole froze. He hadn't considered dinner. "What do you usually eat?" For different answers erupted simultaneously. "Pizza, chicken nuggets, macaroni cheese, pancakes." His phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from his CFO about the Asian market's opening. He silenced it. "How about pizza?" he suggested, earning 3 cheers and 1 thoughtful frown from Maya. "Mommy says pizza is a sometimes food," she informed him solemnly. "This is definitely a sometimes," he assured her, finding the delivery menu Aaliyah had magnetized to the refrigerator. Dinner negotiations complete, he navigated homework supervision. Maya needed none. Zara needed constant redirection. Bath time, a water-soaked disaster he'd never discuss in public. And finally, bedtime. "You have to read us a story," Nia insisted, the usually quiet child suddenly firm on protocol. 3 stories, Kira countered. 4 stories, Zara upped the bid. 1 story each, Maya suggested reasonably. Cole found himself wedged onto a twin bed, surrounded by freshly bathed 7-year-olds in matching pajamas, staring at a pile of picture books. "You have to do the voices," Zara instructed, snuggling against his side. "Mommy always does the voices." "Different voices for each character," Maya clarified. "And sound effects," added Kira. Cole Harrington, who regularly addressed the Federal Reserve and international finance ministers, cleared his throat nervously and began reading about a princess who hated her frilly dresses. His deep voice stretched into ridiculous pitches, attempting dragons and fairies and talking animals. The girls were asleep by the 3rd book, piled around him like puppies, their soft breath against his shirt. He didn't move, afraid to wake them, afraid to lose this moment he'd never imagined wanting. When Aaliyah returned at 10, she found him still there, Nia's head on his chest, his phone ignored on the nightstand. "They wore you out," she whispered, leaning against the doorframe. "Worth it," he murmured. Later, as the girls slept, Aaliyah handed him a glass of wine in the kitchen. "They're starting to expect you now," she warned softly. "Don't you dare become someone they count on if you're planning to disappear again." When was the moment you realized you could be more than what others expected of you? When did you first feel yourself changing for someone else? The challenge in her eyes made him want to prove something he wasn't sure he could deliver. But for the first time in his life, Cole Harrington wanted to try. With the girls finally asleep upstairs, 8 years of unspoken truths erupted between them, along with a hunger neither expected to survive their broken past. "They're down for the night," Cole said, accepting the 2nd glass of wine Aaliyah offered. The kitchen clock read midnight. Neither seemed inclined to end the evening. "You're good with them," she admitted reluctantly. "Better than I expected. They make it easy." He studied her over the rim of his glass. "How did you do it? 4 babies at once, by yourself?" The question hung between them, opening the door to the past they'd both avoided. Aaliyah sighed, leaning against the counter. "I didn't know about them when we divorced. Found out 3 weeks later. Moonlight spilled through kitchen windows, painting silver paths across the tile floor. By then, you'd made your position on daughters crystal clear. I would have, what, changed your mind? Stayed out of obligation. Her voice remained low but sharp. You told me repeatedly that daughters would weaken your family line, that Harrington men needed sons. Cole set down his glass, shame burning his throat more than the wine. I was wrong. Yes, you were. No forgiveness softened her words. I spent months on bed rest, high-risk pregnancy, for heartbeats inside me, and every doctor warning about complications. He moved toward her, stopping when she raised her hand. I don't want your guilt, Cole. It doesn't help me now. Then what do you want? Understanding. They're people, not possessions. Not extensions of your ego or legacy. Her eyes flashed. They're perfect exactly as they are. I know that. He stepped closer. I'm not the same man who walked away. Aren't you? She didn't back away. Your father's voice still lives in your head. I hear it every time you mention the Harrington name or legacy. The truth of her words stung. My father. He hesitated. He taught me that emotions were weakness. That power was the only measure of a man's worth. And you believed him. I did. Until I saw 4 little girls with my dimple. His voice cracked, and realized I'd missed 7 years of their lives because I was too blind to question what he taught me. Something shifted between them, acknowledgement of pain that ran deeper than anger. I never told them, Aaliyah whispered, that you didn't want daughters. I couldn't bear for them to think they weren't wanted from the beginning. The weight of her protection, not just of their daughters, but of his image in their eyes, hit him with physical force. He reached for her before he could think better of it, his hand cupping her cheek. Aaliyah. She should have pulled away. Instead, she leaned into his touch, eyes closing briefly. This doesn't fix anything, she warned, even as she stepped closer. I know. His other hand found her waist, the curve familiar beneath his palm. Their first kiss was hesitant, a question. The second answered with 8 years of buried need. His hands remembered her body like a favorite poem, the curve where hip met waist, the soft hollow of her throat. When she gasped his name, it wasn't forgiveness, but it was something equally powerful, recognition. They collided against the kitchen counter, months of tension igniting into flame. Buttons scattered across tile as her fingers fought with his shirt. His lips traced the path he'd memorized long ago. Jaw, neck, collarbone. Each kiss reclaiming territory he'd abandoned. This is just physical, she breathed against his mouth. Nothing more. He answered by lifting her onto the counter, hands sliding beneath her shirt, finding skin that responded exactly as he remembered. When she wrapped her leg around his waist, pulling him closer, strategy and caution evaporated between them. Their bodies remembered what their minds tried to forget. The rhythm, the pressure, the precise angle that made her cry out against his shoulder. Afterward, tangled together on the couch, her head on his chest, reality slowly returned. Is physical connection sometimes easier than emotional honesty? Have you ever found yourself drawn back to someone who hurt you, knowing your body remembers what your mind tries to forget? This complicates things, she whispered, fingers tracing patterns on his skin. Or simplifies them, he countered, holding her closer. I want to be in their lives. In your life, if you'll let me. The first time Cole took all 4 daughters to his penthouse alone, he realized his life contained nothing that mattered to children, and that terrified him more than any market crash. Where are all your things? Zara spun in circles in Cole's vast living room, her voice echoing off empty walls and floor-to-ceiling windows. These are my things, Cole replied, gesturing to the minimal furniture and abstract art. Maya peered at him over her glasses. But where are your books? Your games? Your stuffed animals? The genuine confusion in her voice made him see his home through new eyes. His minimalist penthouse, once featured in magazines for its masculine restraint, suddenly felt sterile and cold. A showroom, not a home. I need to use the bathroom, Kira announced, dancing from foot to foot. Down the hall, first door, he stopped as all 4 girls took off running. Careful, don't. The sound of something expensive crashing to the floor echoed through the apartment. By lunchtime, Cole had ordered child-sized furniture, books, art supplies, and games, all being delivered within hours thanks to his assistant's frantic calls and generous tips. By dinner, princess tints occupied his living room. Magnetic letters covered his refrigerator, and 4 distinct personalities had claimed territory in a space that had never known laughter. Mr. Davenport, the board needs your decision on the merger by tomorrow morning. His executive assistant reminded him over the phone, disapproval evident in her tone. It's Harrington, he corrected automatically, watching the girls draw on his previously pristine walls with washable markers he'd specifically requested. And the decision can wait until Monday. Sir, these international partners have flown in specifically. Monday, Ms. Chun. He ended the call as Nia approached with a marker. You can draw too, she offered solemnly, holding out a purple marker. Cole accepted it, kneeling beside her at the wall. I'm not very good at drawing. That's okay. You can practice. She demonstrated, adding a wobbly flower to the wall. See? Not perfect, but still pretty. When bedtime approached, panic set in. He hadn't thought about sleeping arrangements. His guest rooms contained nothing but platform beds and abstract paintings. No night lights, no stuffed animals, none of the comfort objects Aaliyah had carefully packed for him. Let's build a fort, he suggested impulsively, pulling cushions from couches and chairs. The girls squealed with delight, helping construct an elaborate structure in the center of his living room. When Aaliyah called to check in, he put her on speaker. Everything's fine, he assured her, meeting 4 pairs of eyes, silently begging him not to reveal their massive fort or the ice cream he'd allowed after dinner. They sound happy, she said, surprise evident in her voice. We are, Zara shouted. Daddy let us. Maya's hand clapped over her sister's mouth. Daddy, the word hung in the air after the call ended. He hadn't corrected her, hadn't wanted to. Have you ever completely reimagined your life to make room for someone else? What did you gain by giving up the vision you had for yourself? When he returned the girls home Sunday night, Aaliyah stood in her doorway, looking exhausted but beautiful. They haven't stopped talking about you, she admitted reluctantly. Before he could respond, his phone rang, his father's number flashing on the screen for the first time in years. The universe had a twisted sense of timing. His father's voice on the phone cut through him like winter wind. I hear you're playing daddy to a bunch of girls now. Guess you weren't man enough to make sons after all. Cole's finger hovered over the decline button, but old habits won out. Father, the Greenwich Club's buzzing about your little family situation. Harrison Harrington's voice dripped with disdain. Quadruplets with your ex-wife? And daughters, no less. Thought I taught you better. Cole watched Aaliyah usher the girls inside, their chatter fading behind closed doors. What do you want? Meet me at the house tomorrow. We need to discuss damage control. The line went dead before Cole could refuse. The next day, Cole's Bentley crunched up the familiar gravel driveway in Greenwich, Connecticut. His father's mansion loomed ahead, its stone columns and manicured gardens a physical manifestation of the rigid expectations that had shaped him into a man who once thought daughters weren't worth his name. Harrison Harrington waited in his study, a glass of scotch in hand despite the early hour. At 70, he remained imposing, silver hair perfectly styled, posture military straight, eyes cold as the diamonds in his cufflinks. You've created quite the mess, he began without greeting. 4 illegitimate daughters showing up now? Of all times, when we're positioning for the Westbrook acquisition. They're not illegitimate. Aaliyah and I were married when they were conceived. Semantics. Harrison waved dismissively. The point is, this distraction comes at a critical time. The board is watching. Investors are nervous. My daughters are a distraction. Harrison's eyebrow arched. Your daughters? Last I checked, you agreed with me that daughters dilute a family's power. That's why you left that woman. Heat rose in Cole's chest. Her name is Aaliyah. Whatever. Harrison refilled his glass. Here's what we'll do. Set up a trust. Generous monthly payments. The woman gets financial security. You get quarterly visits in controlled environments. Everyone saves face. Cole stared at his father, suddenly seeing the emptiness behind the power. the hollowness behind the legacy. A man who'd measured his life in acquisitions rather than connections. No, Harrison blinked. Excuse me, those girls are Harringtons, Cole stated, voice steady. And they're worth 10 of the man you raised me to be. Don't be dramatic. You sound like your mother. Harrison sneered. This sentimental nonsense is exactly why women weaken bloodlines. My mother was the only genuine person in this house. Cole stood. And I've spent my entire life trying to erase her influence because you convinced me it was weakness. It is weakness. Look at you, ready to throw away everything we've built for 4 little girls who will never carry on the Harrington name. They already are carrying it, and they're doing a better job of it than I ever did. Cole moved toward the door. I'm done letting you dictate what matters. Harrison's face darkened. Walk out that door, and you're making a choice you can't take back. I already made that choice 8 years ago when I walked away from my marriage. I'm not making the same mistake twice. When have you had to break the cycle of what you were taught? What family legacy would you fight to change for the next generation? Driving away from his childhood home, Cole made a decision that would seal his transformation. He would change his company's name from Harrington Capital to include all 4 of his daughter's initials. But as he pulled into Aaliyah's street, he saw another man, handsome, comfortable, helping the girls out of a car, high-fiving each one with familiar ease. Cole Harrington had never experienced jealousy until he watched another man make his daughters laugh with the easy confidence of someone who had earned their trust long before he arrived. The man was tall, athletic, with an easy smile that matched the girls' excitement as they tumbled from his sedan. He high-fived each one in succession, bending to hear Nia's whispered comment with practiced attention. Cole sat frozen in his car, a foreign emotion clawing at his chest. The girls clearly adored this stranger. They moved around him with the comfort of long familiarity, showing none of the careful politeness they still sometimes used with Cole. Uncle Marcus brought cupcakes. Zara's voice carried across the street as she bounced up the steps. Uncle? Cole's mind raced. Aaliyah had no brothers, no male relatives she was close to. Who was this man who had access to his daughters, who had apparently been part of their lives, while Cole built empires made of nothing that truly mattered? He waited until the man left before approaching the house. Aaliyah opened the door, surprise flickering across her face. We didn't expect you today. Clearly, Cole couldn't keep the edge from his voice. Who's Marcus? Aaliyah's expression cooled. A friend. What? The girls called him Uncle, because he's been in their lives since they were born. She crossed her arms. Unlike some people, the barb landed precisely. Is he your boyfriend? That's none of your business. It is if he's spending time with my daughters. Aaliyah's eyes narrowed dangerously. First, they were never your daughters until about 5 minutes ago. Second, Marcus is a friend who's been there for us through everything. And third, you don't get to question who I allow in their lives. I have a right. No, she cut him off. You have visitation. There's a difference. They glared at each other, tension crackling between them like live wires. The memory of their night together hung unspoken in the air, complicating everything. Daddy, Kira spotted him from the kitchen doorway, face lighting up. Uncle Marcus brought cupcakes. There's one left. His anger deflated instantly at her excitement. She grabbed his hand, pulling him inside where the other girls sat at the kitchen table, faces smeared with frosting. We saved you the chocolate one, Maya informed him solemnly. Later, after cupcakes and stories and bedtime routines, Cole and Aaliyah found themselves alone in her small home office. The tension returned immediately. I looked him up, Cole admitted. Marcus Chun, pediatric nurse, no criminal record. Aaliyah's eyes widened. You investigated him? I needed to know who's around my daughters. That's crossed the line, Cole. Her voice shook with anger. You don't get to control my life or who I spend time with. Is he why you won't give us another chance? The question escaped before he could stop it. Instead of answering, Aaliyah stepped forward, fury and something else darkening her eyes. When her mouth crashed against his, it wasn't tenderness, but challenge. Her hands gripped his shirt, pulling him against her with an intensity that matched his jealousy. Is jealousy ever justified, Or is it always about our own insecurities? Have you ever realized you wanted something only after seeing someone else appreciate its value? He was there when I was on bed rest carrying your daughters. She whispered fiercely when they broke apart. He brought me groceries when I couldn't leave the house with 4 newborns. What gives you the right to question him now? The truth hit Cole like a physical blow. This man had been there when Cole should have been, and no amount of money or DNA could erase that debt. Planning his daughter's birthday party became Cole's redemption project, until he discovered Aaliyah had already promised that Marcus would be there too. A magician and a bouncy castle. Aaliyah stared at Cole across her kitchen table. They're turning 8, not becoming royalty. They deserve the best. Cole scrolled through options on his tablet. The company I found does themed parties. Princesses, mermaids, whatever they want. Cole, we already have plans. Small gathering at the community center. Homemade cake. Games. Family and friends. We can upgrade. I'll cover everything. Aaliyah's expression hardened. This isn't about money. It's about what they're used to. What makes them comfortable. Having nice things will make them comfortable. Having their friends and familiar surroundings will make them comfortable. She sighed. Look, you can contribute. Help decorate. But we're keeping it simple. Fine. He reluctantly set down his tablet. Who's coming? My mom's flying in. A few neighbors. Kids from school. Marcus is handling the games. Cole's jaw tightened. Marcus again. Yes, Marcus. The girls love him. She met his gaze directly. He's MCNG the party games like he does every year. Every year. Another reminder of all he'd missed. The day of the party arrived with perfect weather. Cole showed up early to help, arms loaded with decorations far more elaborate than Aaliyah had requested. She rolled her eyes, but accepted his help, hanging streamers and balloon arches that transformed the simple community center into something magical. The girls twirled in matching party dresses, each a different color that matched their personalities. Zara in bold red, Maya in thoughtful blue, Kira in adventurous green, and Nia in sunny yellow. Their excitement bridged the awkward chasm between the men watching from opposite sides of the decorated backyard. Cole watched Marcus organize a relay race, the children's laughter filling the air. The man was good with kids, patient, encouraging, clearly experienced. It grated on Cole's nerves even as he recognized the quality. He's not competition, you know. Cole turned to find Marcus beside him, offering a paper cup of punch. Excuse me, the way you look at me, like I'm trying to take your place. Marcus shrugged. I'm not. Never was. You seem very comfortable with my daughters. They're great kids. Aaliyah did an amazing job. Marcus watched the girls line up for another game. But they need their father. Always have. Yet you stepped in. As a friend. Nothing more. Marcus met his gaze directly. They have enough love for both of us. And so does she, just not in the same way. Before Cole could respond, his phone vibrated. His executive assistant's name flashed on the screen. He ignored it. It buzzed again immediately. You should get that, Marcus said. Looks important. Cole stepped away reluctantly, answering the call. His assistant's voice was tight with urgency. Sir, you need to return to the office immediately. The board has called an emergency meeting. Your father is making a move against you. Today's my daughter's birthday party. Sir, he's initiated a hostile takeover. He says it's to protect the Harrington legacy from being wasted on girls. Cole looked across the yard at his daughter's laughing faces and made a decision that would cost him everything he'd built. I'll be there in an hour. The empire he'd spent his life building was under attack, and the only way to save it was to sacrifice the time he needed to become the father his daughters deserved. Cole straightened his tie as the elevator ascended to the executive floor. His birthday suit felt like armor now, protection against what waited in the boardroom. Through glass walls, he could see them already assembled. Board members, lawyers, his executive team, and at the head of the table, Harrison Harrington. His father didn't stand when Cole entered. Instead, he smiled with cold satisfaction. Glad you could join us. We were just discussing the future of Harrington Capital. My company, Cole corrected, taking the empty seat across from his father. Our family's company, Harrison countered, which you've been neglecting for personal matters. The boardroom buzzed with tension. Stock tickers scrolled across monitors like a countdown to failure. Documents passed between board members, papers Cole hadn't seen or approved. "I've prepared a presentation," Harrison continued smoothly, outlining concerning performance metrics from the last quarter. Missed opportunities, delayed decisions. His eyes hardened. Distracted leadership. For 3 hours, Cole defended his position, countered accusations, presented growth figures, all while his phone vibrated repeatedly in his pocket. Aaliyah, no doubt wondering why he disappeared from the birthday party. "The vote will be held Friday," the board chairman finally announced. "Both sides will present final arguments before shareholders determine leadership going forward." Cole's assistant rushed to his side as the meeting dispersed. "We need to work through the night. I've called the strategy team back in. I have to make a call first." In the privacy of his office, he dialed Aaliyah's number. "Where are you?" Anger and hurt filled her voice. "The girls have been asking for an hour. There's emergency at work. My father. Of course it's work. It's always work." The disappointment in her tone cut deeper than his father's attacks. "You promised them, Cole." "I know. I'll make it up to them." "No, you won't. That's the point. Some moments can't be rescheduled." He closed his eyes, seeing 4 disappointed faces blowing out candles without him. "I have to handle this. It'll just be a few days. It's always just a few days." Her voice softened with something worse than anger, resignation. "This is exactly why I never told you about them, Cole. They deserve someone who shows up, not someone who's always handling emergencies that matter more than they do." The call ended before he could respond. For 4 days, Cole barely left the office. He slept on his couch, showered in the executive gym, ate whatever his assistant ordered. The war room operated around the clock, preparing for Friday's vote. He missed Wednesday night dinner with the girls, missed Thursday's school play where Nia had her first speaking role. Each absence felt like a stone in his stomach. Friday morning, the markets opened with Harrington stock already climbing on rumors of Harrison's return. Shareholders filed into the company auditorium, badges scanned, votes ready. Cole straightened his tie, reviewing his notes one last time. The case was strong, quarterly earnings up despite market downturns, new client acquisition exceeding targets. But numbers couldn't capture what was truly at stake. His father approached, confidence radiating from his perfect posture. "Not too late to concede gracefully. I could keep you on in a reduced capacity." "Always so generous," Cole replied dryly. "You're going to lose, son. The shareholders want stability. Tradition. Not a CEO distracted by domestic drama." Cole's phone lit up with a text from Aaliyah. "Girls asking if you're coming to dinner tonight. What should I tell them?" The simplicity of the question cut through everything. While he fought for control of a company, for little girls were wondering if he'd show up for spaghetti. When the markets closed Friday, Cole had lost control of the company bearing his name. As his executives scrambled for strategies, he silenced the room with 4 words that shocked even himself. "Let my father have it." His assistant gasped. "You've spent 15 years building Harrington Capital." Cole stood, straightening his tie one last time. "And I've spent 8 years missing something far more valuable." What would you choose? The legacy you've built or the legacy you could create? Can we ever truly balance ambition with love? The day Cole Harrington walked away from billions to be at a kindergarten play featuring his daughters as talking flowers, business magazines called it a breakdown. He called it finally waking up. Headlines flashed across financial news channels before the ink on his resignation was dry. Harrington heir abandoned ship, Wall Street wunderkind walks away, family feud cost shareholders billions. Cole ignored them all, turning off his phone as he drove to the elementary school. He'd missed Nia's play yesterday. He wouldn't miss today's performance. The elementary school auditorium, with its folding chairs and hand-painted backdrop, felt more significant than any boardroom he'd commanded. The stage where his daughters performed holding more value than the floors of the stock exchange where his company's shares were now in freefall. "You came." Zara spotted him first, breaking formation from the line of flower costumes to wave frantically. "Miss Johnson." "Zara's not staying in the garden row," Maya reported, ever the rule follower. Cole found a seat in the back, ignoring the curious glances from other parents who'd surely seen his face splashed across the morning news. When Nia stepped forward for her solo, 3 lines about photosynthesis delivered in a voice surprisingly strong for his quietest child. Pride swelled in his chest, unlike anything he'd felt signing billion-dollar deals. Aaliyah found him after the performance, surprise evident in her expression. "You're here. I quit." The words felt lighter each time he said them. "The company? Everything. The board. The firm." He shrugged. "My father can have it all." "Cole." She studied his face, searching for signs of regret or mania. "That company was your life." "No, it wasn't. That's the point." He gestured toward the girls, who were removing flower headpieces backstage. "They are. Should have been all along." Later that afternoon, Cole cleared out his office. 15 years reduced to a single cardboard box. His assistant watched, teary-eyed. "What will you do now?" she asked. He considered the question. For the first time in his adult life, he had no 5-year plan, no strategy, no objectives to meet. "Live," he answered simply. The media camped outside his penthouse for days, hungry for the breakdown narrative. Cole ignored them, focusing instead on apartments in Brooklyn, near Aaliyah and the girls. He found a brownstone on their street, not as grand as his Manhattan address, but with a yard that backed up to theirs. The symbolism wasn't lost on him. 2 weeks after walking away from Harrington Capital, Cole hosted his first proper dinner in his new home. The girls helped set the table, arguing over placement of forks and napkins. Aaliyah brought dessert, her cautious optimism evident in small gestures. The way she arranged flowers in a vase, straightened picture frames the girls had already hung. "The business channels think you've lost your mind," she commented, sliding a casserole into his barely used oven. "Maybe I have." He leaned against the counter, watching her move through his kitchen. "Or maybe I've finally found it." After dinner, the girls explored every corner of the new house, claiming spaces and making plans for sleepovers. When Aaliyah mentioned it was getting late, a school night, they protested with well-practiced whining. "I'll walk you home," Cole offered. With the girls finally herded next door, Cole and Aaliyah stood on her porch in comfortable silence. The spring evening wrapped around them, streetlights casting gentle shadows. "Thank you," he said finally. "For what?" "For protecting them all these years. From disappointment. From me." He moved closer. "I understand now why you kept them from me. I wasn't ready to be their father. And now I can't imagine being anything else." She traced the new lines on his face, marks of transformation rather than just age. "I never thought I'd see this day," she whispered against his lips. "What day?" he asked, pulling her closer. "The day Cole Harrington found something he valued more than power." Her kiss tasted like forgiveness, like possibility. What would you give up to be present for what truly matters? Have you ever walked away from success to find fulfillment? Later, as they lay tangled in her sheets, Cole realized with startling clarity that he didn't want to leave. Not just his daughters, but their mother too. Before he could find the words, Aaliyah spoke first. "I think we need to talk about Marcus. There's something you should know." The truth Aaliyah had protected for years spilled between them like broken glass. Marcus wasn't just a friend. He was her brother, who donated his bone marrow when one of the girls faced a life-threatening illness during Cole's absence. "Your brother?" Cole sat up in bed, confusion playing on his face. "You don't have a brother. Half-brother," Aaliyah clarified, pulling the sheet around her. "Same father, different mothers. We found each other after my dad died. Why didn't you tell me?" "When? During our divorce? Or the 8 years you were gone?" She sighed. "Marcus moved to New York to help when I was pregnant. We weren't close before that, but he's the only family I have besides my mom." Cole processed this information, relief and shame battling for dominance. Relief that Marcus wasn't a romantic rival. Shame at his jealousy and suspicion. "There's more," Aaliyah said quietly. 3 years ago, Kira got sick. Very sick. A chill ran through him. "What kind of sick?" "Leukemia. Rare type. She needed a bone marrow transplant." Aaliyah's voice steadied as she continued. "Maya, Zara, and Nia weren't matches. I wasn't either. Marcus was." Cole felt the room tilt. One of his daughters had faced death, and he hadn't known. Hadn't been there. Hadn't helped. I should have been told. His voice sounded hollow even to himself. To what end, Cole? You made your choice years earlier. Would knowing have changed anything? The truth in her question burned. Would he have come back for a sick child when he'd walked away from 4 healthy ones? Show me, he whispered. Aaliyah led him down the hallway toward Kira's room. Family photos lined the wall. A timeline of milestones Cole had missed, including a hospital image of a much smaller Kira connected to machines. Marcus asleep in a chair beside her, and Aaliyah holding 3 other frightened little girls close. She was in the hospital for 11 weeks, Aaliyah explained. The transplant took on the 3rd try. Cole stared at the photo, at the dark circles under Aaliyah's eyes, at the fear etched on small faces. I should have told you, Aaliyah admitted. But part of me wanted to punish you for not being there when her voice broke. When we almost lost her. He reached for her, pulling her against his chest as tears finally came. Hers for remembered fear, his for something precious he'd almost lost without ever knowing. That's why the girls call him Uncle Marcus, she continued against his shoulder. He saved Kira's life. He helped save all of us during that time. Cole thought of his coldness toward Marcus, his investigations, his jealousy. Shame washed through him anew. He never said anything, because I asked him not to. We agreed the girl's relationship with you should develop without that history coloring everything. Dawn light filtered through the windows as they returned to the kitchen. Cole made coffee while Aaliyah leaned against the counter, exhaustion and relief mingling in her posture. I need to thank him, Cole said finally. He didn't do it for thanks. I know. That's why I need to give it. As they sat surrounded by evidence of a life he'd missed, Cole made a decision. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a small box that didn't contain a ring, not yet, but keys. I bought the house next door to yours, he confessed. Not to pressure you, but to promise them, and you, that I'm not going anywhere again. Her expression told him nothing about whether she thought this was romantic or presumptuous, only that everything hung in the balance of her next words. Could you forgive yourself for not being there during someone's darkest hour? How do you move forward knowing you can never get back time that was lost? The millionaire who once owned half of Manhattan moved into a modest brownstone in Brooklyn. Not because it was grand, but because it shared a backyard fence with the only people who mattered. You need more furniture, Zara declared, her voice echoing in Cole's mostly empty living room. 6 weeks had passed since his resignation, since learning about Kira's illness, since deciding to rebuild his life around 4 little girls instead of stock portfolios. What kind of furniture do you suggest? He asked seriously, notepad ready, as if taking minutes in a board meeting. Bean bags, Kira yelled, jumping onto the lone couch. Bookshelves, Maya countered predictably. A really big table for art projects, Nia added quietly. Cole wrote down each suggestion with the same focus he'd once given to billion-dollar acquisitions. His new home took shape slowly, not with designer pieces featured in magazines, but with colorful, practical items chosen during weekend shopping trips with his daughters. The backyard became their first joint project. Cole hired contractors to remove the fence between properties, replacing it with a wide gate that could swing open or closed. Respecting boundaries while acknowledging that what once was separated could find ways to reconnect without losing independence. The neighbors will talk, Aaliyah warned, watching workers install the gate. Let them, Cole replied, handing her coffee in the travel mug he now knew she preferred. It's practical. The girls can move between houses safely. The new arrangement settled into rhythm. Breakfast at Aaliyah's on school days. Homework at Cole's most afternoons. Family dinners alternating between homes. The girls adapted with the resilience of children, treating both houses as extensions of home. Marcus visited regularly, no longer a mystery, but family. Cole's initial awkwardness evolved into genuine respect, then friendship. They discovered shared interests beyond the quadruplets: basketball, classic films, books on historical exploration. You're good with them, Marcus commented one evening watching Cole referee an argument between Zara and Maya over whose turn it was to choose the movie. I'm learning, Cole admitted. 8 years late. Better late than never. Trust me, I didn't know my sister existed until I was 30. Marcus clasped his shoulder. Family's family, no matter when you find it. Cole's relationship with Aaliyah evolved more cautiously. The physical attraction remained, flaring in quiet moments after the girls were asleep. But they moved carefully, aware of what was at stake. We're not the same people we were, she told him one night, curled beside him on his couch after the girls' sleepover at a friend's home. I'm not the woman you married. Thank God for that, he replied. I wasn't worth marrying back then. Their bodies remembered each other like familiar geography. But there was discovery too. New scars, new sensitivities. You're not the man I married, she whispered against his shoulder. Thank God for that, he replied, drawing her closer. Spring bloomed into summer. The garden between their homes filled with flowers planted by 8 hands of varying sizes. Cole learned school schedules, doctor appointments, each girl's favorite foods and fears. He built a life measured not in financial quarters, but in bedtime stories, skin knees, and math homework. Is it possible to build something new with someone who knew the old version of you? What would your second chance look like if you could design it perfectly? When the girls returned the next morning, rushing through both houses with the freedom of children who felt at home in either space, Zara, always the most perceptive, looked between her parents and asked the question they'd been circling for months. Are you falling in love again, or did you never really stop? 8 years after he walked away, claiming daughters would weaken his legacy, Cole Harrington proposed to Aaliyah in a garden surrounded by the 4 little girls who had become his greatest strength. Summer sunshine warmed the garden where both families gathered for Sunday brunch, a tradition established over the past 3 months. Cole watched his daughters set the outdoor table, each contributing in her unique way. Maya organizing silverware with mathematical precision, Zara arranging wildflowers in mismatched jars, Kira testing the stability of each chair by jumping on it, Nia quietly placing her hand-drawn name cards at each setting. They're plotting something, Aaliyah murmured, joining Cole at the grill. They've been whispering all morning. Maybe they finally figured out we're dating again, Cole suggested. We're not dating. We're figuring things out. We're something, he countered, enjoying the blush that still rose to her cheeks when he stood too close. Brunch progressed with the controlled chaos of family life. Pancakes slightly burned on one side, orange juice spilled and quickly mopped up. 4 voices competing for attention with stories from school, questions about the universe, complaints about each other. We have a surprise, Zara announced when plates were emptied. The 4 girls exchanged conspiratorial glances before running inside. Should we be worried? Cole asked. Definitely, Aaliyah laughed. The girls returned carrying something hidden behind their backs. They lined up solemnly at the head of the table. We took a vote, Maya explained, adjusting her glasses. And made a decision, Kira added. About our family, Nia continued. Because we're tired of going back and forth. Zara burst out, unable to contain herself. With practice coordination, they revealed their surprise. A crudely constructed model of a house made from cardboard, popsicle sticks, and excessive glitter. It's our new house, Maya explained. All of us together. 6 bedrooms. Kira pointed out features with a stick. 1 for each of us and 1 for you too. And a really big kitchen, Nia added. And a dog. Zara bounced on her toes. We voted yes on that too. Cole met Aaliyah's eyes across the table, finding his own surprise mirrored there, along with something warmer, something that had been growing steadily between them. Well, she managed finally. That's quite a proposal. Actually, Cole reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box. It's not the only proposal today. The girl squealed as he moved to Aaliyah's side, kneeling in the grass beside her chair. I don't want a new house, he said softly. I just want us, all of us, together. Whether that's 2 houses with a gate or 1 home, doesn't matter. He opened the box, revealing a ring that sparkled in the sunshine. What matters is that I love you. Always have, even when I was too blind to know what that meant. What mistakes from your past turned out to be the doorway to your greatest joy? Would you change your painful journey if it meant not arriving exactly where you are now? Surrounded by four little girls bouncing with excitement, Cole asked the question he should have answered differently 8 years ago. Will you build a family with me? Boy or girl, house or apartment, rich or poor, none of that matters. Just us together. Aaliyah's answer changed everything. We already are a family. It just took you a while to find us. If this story of transformation touched you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about second chances and redemption. Comment below with your thoughts on whether our biggest mistakes can become our greatest teachers. And remember, sometimes what looks like the end of your story is just the beginning of a much better one.